What is going on, everyone? Welcome to the Bats Cave. This is the pop culture podcast where I, your host, Alex Bats, talk about everything in the world of comics, movies, video games, TV shows, and more. This is episode 9, and I'm continuing my Star Wars rewatch. Before I get into that, though, I just want to talk a little bit. I had a crazy busy day, yesterday. So I actually, if you follow me on either of my Twitters, really, because I post about it on both of them. I have started going to my coffee shop early in the morning every Saturday. I literally get there whenever they open now at 7 a.m., which I am definitely a morning person. I wake up at 5 anyway on my day off, or my days off, which is around the time that I normally wake up for work. But yeah, so I'm up super early all the time. But so I go to my coffee shop early, and so I went to my coffee shop yesterday on Saturday, because I'm actually recording this on Sunday, the same day that it will be going up. It'll be up in a few hours, hopefully, if all the uploading process and everything goes as planned, which is weird because I never record the same day that I upload. So I'm interested to see how this I'm interested to see what time exactly this will be able to go up after I finish recording. But yeah, so I did that. So I went yesterday, Saturday morning, to my coffee shop in the morning, and I literally ended up I finished watching A New Hope at the coffee shop because I brought my laptop, and then I also watched all of Empire Strikes Back at the coffee shop. But then after I left the coffee shop, I went and got a new tattoo, which I'm very excited about. It's the Morgan from The Wicked and the Divine, if you know who that is. If you don't know who that is, please read The Wicked and the Divine. It's my favorite comic book series, just in general. It's so good that it's a thing now. I just need to, it's turning into a meme. I literally just say it's so good all the time. But yeah, so I did that. That was fun. I got it on my calf, which I haven't gotten anything not on my arms before. So, I'm very excited about that. But yeah, it definitely fucking hurt a lot. There's some spots that are just god awful. But honestly, and I say this every time, the healing process remains the worst part of getting a tattoo. The actual pain whenever you're going through the tattoo, I'm whatever, this is fine. Yeah, it sucks, but you're only doing it for however long the tattoo lasts. And then after that, it's done. But healing takes weeks, and it's just weeks of bullshit. I hate it so much. So yeah, my calf is really sore now. Walking is kind of difficult. But yeah, so I did that. I did that yesterday. Yesterday just felt like a super long day because I felt like I did so many different things. But then now this morning I actually finished. I literally just finished rewatching Return of the Jedi 15 minutes ago, if that. Before I'm sitting down to record this. So yeah, I'm going to be talking about the original trilogy of Star Wars because, again, my rewatch order has been chronological. I've gone 1, 2, 3, Solo, Rogue One, and now 4, 5, and 6. So we're most of the way through, which is crazy. Rise of Skywalker comes out in less than a week, which is insane as well. But yeah, so the original trilogy of Star Wars, man. I don't know. I have sort of conflicting, not really conflicting emotions about the original trilogy, but I'll say out of the gate, I don't like it as much as I think that most people do. Obviously I didn't grow up with the original trilogy. I'm too young. I wasn't alive whenever they came out. But so of course I'd seen them though whenever I was little because they were, out. And so I've always seen them, and I don't know, it's interesting because I really I like them. They're really good, but I just don't have a super strong connection to them, and so I don't love them a whole lot. I mean, I do because they're Star Wars, and I really love Star Wars. But as films, they don't rank super high on my overall list. I think honestly, it's difficult because I want to say that I like them. I think I liked them the most that I have on this past rewatch. Except for Empire. I mean, also still Empire, but I've always just really loved Empire. Empire is easily the best of the original trilogy. But I enjoyed A New Hope and Return of the Jedi more this time than I have any other time that I've watched them, which is good. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll start and try to go episode through episode. So A New Hope is great. I mean, it's a really good movie. I think the thing that I love about A New Hope most is, well, I mean, one, it's the introduction to Star Wars, and so it just establishes this incredible world and universe that is and becomes Star Wars. And it's really cool. I actually hadn't thought about it in this way specifically until really recently, but like all of the dialogue in A New Hope, like there's so many different like just phrases and like words that are just dropped that allude to a much larger story and like a much deeper history than what we see in the film. Like Obi-Wan just offhandedly mentions the Clone Wars. He talks about Anakin. He mentions like Darth Vader and him like killing Anakin, which certain point of view, whatever. I'll get to that. And like he does that, and it's just little things like that, and like the Kessel Run and like 12 parsecs, like that's just like offhandedly mentioned, which like we've seen that now, but like there's just so many things like that throughout the entire film that just make the world feel bigger than it is, which is really cool. And it's one of the reasons that I love Star Wars so much, because it is such a big and expansive like universe. And so that's great. I think that's that, and like the amount of creatures and stuff that Lucas packs into like the cantina scene especially, and just like throughout the film, like you are very aware that the world that the main characters that we're following, like the world that they inhabit, is so much bigger than just them, which I think is really cool. But yeah, like as a movie and like a story, I mean, it's the hero's journey straight up. Like Luke just goes on the hero's journey, which is cool, and it's just it. One thing that they do incredibly well with this film, and is still like a technical marvel, honestly, the way like the special effects in this film, because they didn't have computers. Like the most that a computer could do at the time was the like little like the Death Star plans that you see them like looking at, just those like white lines on the black screen. Like that was all they could do. And so the filming techniques that they used for this film, and then also for Empire and Return of the Jedi, just with their miniature work, with their miniature work and the like use of acrylic paintings, and using all these different techniques and combining them all into such an enthralling and like an engaging final product, and just one that visually like holds up incredibly well. It's the reason that it holds up better than the prequels do, because everything that you're seeing is like real, and it's just it's crazy. And so yeah, they did an exceptional job with that, and that's something that one gets better throughout the trilogy, but also is just something that's just so like it's just so great to look at still. And like it's something that when you which also I shouted that out literally like last episode, I think, but the Corridor Crew on digital, or Corridor Digital on YouTube, they literally just had a video come out where they were doing like an in-depth dive into the VFX, or the VFX and the special effects of the original Star Wars trilogy. And like I highly recommend watching that, because one, you'll learn a lot about the process, but then two, it just makes it so much more impressive, because like knowing everything that goes into that, I can't imagine doing that like now, let alone back then whenever they did it. It's insane, honestly. You really, I don't think, can give enough props to really the entire like crew for how Star Wars was filmed. Like it's so good. But yeah, so I really like that. But yeah, Luke goes on the hero's journey. I mean, I like Luke. I don't like I don't know. I don't have a huge attachment really to like any of the characters in the original trilogy, honestly. I mean, Vader kind of, but like Luke is good. I like Luke, but I don't really like love Luke a whole lot. He's not like I don't know. I just don't have a huge attachment. I talked about this last episode. I don't really like Harrison Ford's Han Solo. I liked him a little bit more this time watching through, but I still like don't really like him that much. Leia, I'll say I love Leia. Leia's a really, really fantastic character, and Carrie Fisher, just get really emotional watching that, especially now. But yeah, the like Chewbacca's great. I mean, I guess R2 and C-3PO, I really love them a lot. They're great, but yeah, it's just really interesting that I just don't have like I have more of a connection to like what the characters mean and where they fit in the overall like story of Star Wars than I do for the characters themselves, if that makes sense. Like I just like their relation to each other and to the grander story that's at play like makes me care more about them than say the actual like writing of them, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. So that's interesting. But some of the sequences, like in A New Hope, that are really good. One, the opening sequence of A New Hope is fantastic. The introduction of Vader is just incredible. And then, as I talked about with the Rogue One sequence, you get even more like oomph behind that whenever you see him in A New Hope. So yeah, Vader's entrance in A New Hope, and that whole beginning sequence is really really great. But then we get like the stuff on Tatooine. I mean, the one that of course there's the iconic shot of the setting suns on Tatooine, which is great. But like besides that, most of the Tatooine stuff like I don't really care about that much. The Jawas are okay. I mean, they're kind of funny, but like all of that is pretty eh. And then until it finally gets to like the cantina sequence with like Obi-Wan and Luke going and finding Han and Chewie, like that's good. They go to try to find Alderaan, and then it's destroyed, and then they get captured onto the Death Star. The whole Death Star like in the middle sequence is pretty. I mean, like it's entertaining, it's solid, it's cool seeing them like sneak around and have to try to do that. I think this will be something that I like throughout the original trilogy, and I guess just Star Wars in general. All the like gunfights and stuff I think are really entertaining, even if they're like a bunch of cuts, to like fire and then more fire and then like just the back and forth. But like I don't know, I think it's fun to watch that they do. All the sounds are cool, and like I like seeing people in Star Wars costumes, so like it's nice. But yeah, so the sequence of them like trying to save Leia, and then of course you have the trash compactor sequence, which I mean, again, like the whole movie really, like it's a very entertaining movie, like all the way through. It's not just one of my favorites like of Star Wars. It has the Darth Vader and Obi-Wan fight is great. The choreography in it is obviously like, I mean, quote unquote the weakest like of the series. But they really couldn't, like the lightsabers were super flimsy, like they couldn't go crazy with them in that. And so I think it's really good for the emotional like impact that the sequence has, more so than the actual way that it's like technically done, I guess. But then again, at the same time, just like the lightsabers in general are so cool to like see like in this film. It's a lightsaber, like how can you not be hyped on that? And these are like the first ones that we ever saw too. So I think those are really cool moments. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have like I actually do have one thing I want to talk about on like the A New Hope before I go to like Empire. Um, the final space sequence with them going to take out the Death Star in A New Hope. I was talking about how like technically impressive everything is in these films, and this is no exception, especially like for the time. That whole bombing sequence of the Death Star is just so good. Like, and I was watching it now even, and I was like, man, like I know how they did this, but at the same time, I'm like, damn, how did they do this? Like, it looks so good, and there's no CGI in it. They couldn't. And so that's just really, really wild. And it's a very excellently put together sequence too. You keep the tension the whole time. You really keep the like, will they, won't, that you're on the edge of your seat. You're like waiting. You're like, oh shit, like this is really, really close. And it's just really good the whole way through. So yeah, I like that sequence a lot. Just the way they use the miniatures in these movies is just really, it's something else. It's incredible. And so yeah, that bombing sequence of the Death Star, the first Death Star in A New Hope is a really good sequence. But yeah, I mean overall, like I love A New Hope most for just the fact that it gave us Star Wars. Like it's the first Star Wars, and so I can't not love it a lot for that. But as far as overall like rankings in the saga, it's not super high up there for me, honestly. But on the other hand, then we have The Empire Strikes Back, which I just absolutely love from start to finish. I think The Empire Strikes Back is so good. So one, I like that this one kind of front loads the film with a big battle sequence. And so one, I like Hoth a lot. I like ice planets and stuff. And so Hoth is really cool to see. And we spend a pretty good chunk of time on Hoth. When we're with the rebellion. And the whole one, I think the Wampa like opening or whatever is like cool. It's just cool seeing another creature, and it's like basically the Yeti, which is fun to see. But we get to see Luke like being stronger with the Force, using the Force to get his lightsaber, cut himself free. And then the back and forth between Han and Leia, I feel is like good in this. And then this like it just goes into the huge gigantic battle sequence on Hoth, where we get the AT-ATs coming and trying to destroy the generator for the rebel base. And it's just it's a phenomenal sequence whenever they have their ships, speeders, that they're going for and like trying to take out the AT-ATs, and then of course they do, and they end up doing the iconic thing where they like wrap the cable around the legs in order to get the AT-ATs to fall, and like just the whole like Hoth sequence is really there's one shot in particular where one of the ships literally goes like in between the legs of the AT-AT and then flies like up above the other one, and you're in the cockpit the whole time, and like it looks like they're actually doing that. And so like along with the Death Star sequence at the end of A New Hope, this is another one where they're just like showcasing all of these different methods and techniques and like putting them into one really just epic sequence, and really just showing like what they could do and what they did do with the technology at the time. And so yeah, it's really great to see. I love it a lot, and it's cool because like it makes it where the whole Hoth sequence and the Hoth battle takes up like I think like 30 to like 40 minutes of like the movie, like you spend like on Hoth, which is good. It gives it, there's like plenty of space for it to breathe. There's a lot that happens in there, and like you feel engaged and like good the whole time that you're doing that. Like it's not it never like slows down too much. It's not boring. There's always like something happening, and it's always like really interesting that entire time, I think. And then visually it's just like splendid. It's one of my favorite parts of the film. But then from there we get the group gets like split up, which this is another thing that I like. One of the reasons I love on Empire is it's thematically basically the exact opposite of A New Hope. It's at the end of A New Hope, we had the entire like group is together. They've achieved like complete victory, and all that. I mean, like not complete victory, but like they destroyed the Death Star. That was what they like thought they needed to do. And then we come to Empire Strikes Back. The team gets split up pretty much immediately. Like Luke he's abducted literally at the start. But then after the Battle of Hoth, even like Luke leaves, and Han and Leia and Chewie and 3PO and R2-D2 are also like with them on the Falcon, and so like they get separated from Luke, and so then we get them on the Falcon in space for a good portion of the movie. They're just trying to like evade the Empire, and really again just all the filming techniques that they use for these space sequences and these like flying sequences is just really really strong, and they're just really entertaining to watch. And so we get a lot of that. The whole movie, the hyperdrive, just will not work. It's a pretty funny running joke actually throughout the film. And so I like that. And then yeah, just the character interactions that we get between everyone like on the Falcon as well, I think is really really strong. And so like we go between that and then Luke on Dagobah, who we know finds Yoda and like starts his Jedi training. And so the way that the movie balances these two elements, I think it does it really really well. It spends just enough time with each of them, and each of them also goes at like a really really good pace to where Luke's not just like flying through like his lessons or whatever, which granted he becomes like a phenomenal Jedi when we see him do like not that much training, but like it's Star Wars, so you can't, I don't really complain. I can't complain about that or whatever. But we see like him meet Yoda, and then we also along with that see like Han and Leia and everyone on the Falcon trying to evade the Empire, and just the way that like the problems that keep on arising for each of them throughout these like both of these sections as the movie progresses, I think are very natural obstacles that they end up having to face. And it keeps things engaging on both ends, and it keeps things interesting on both ends, and we get really good character moments on both ends throughout all of this. And so it's just great throughout all of it. And so like that's the big like middle part of the film. And then we get to, so like really this whole film is it's a lot more, I want to say it's a lot more like personal, like dive into the characters than A New Hope. You spend a lot more time with them just strictly interacting with each other while they're also still trying to get out of these situations. Luke himself is doing a ton of self-reflection throughout this movie. That's basically what this movie is for him, and taking his character arc in a different direction. And so I love that. And then we get to the third act, which takes place mostly on pretty much on Cloud City, in Bespin, which Bespin in Cloud City is such an awesome location. It's such a great locale. I love it a lot. Visually, it's just one of my favorite Star Wars places, and it's a city in the clouds. Like that's so cool. And so seeing that is nice. And then we get Lando, which seeing Lando is really really cool. and so we get them going there. We get Han and Leia going there, and things are kind of like off, like too good to be true whenever they first arrive. And then, we end up getting them turned over to the Empire, which it's so funny whenever Lando's like, yeah, I just made a deal to make sure the Empire like never bothers us again. Then he opens the door and Darth Vader's right there. So funny. But also a really small like moment that's really cool. We see Vader just straight up like just absorb, I guess, like blaster bolts with his hand, like using the Force. And I'm like, hey, your your grandson will be doing that in a few more movies whenever when Kylo stops the blaster bolt in The Force Awakens. Anyways, but yeah, so we get them captured, and Luke feels that that's going to happen, like through the Force, and he wants to leave and just not finish his training, and go rescue his friends. And Yoda and Obi-Wan both caution him against this. They're like, no, you're not ready. You can't do this. And Luke's like, nah, I got this. And so Luke goes, and I mean, we all know how that goes by now. But it's just a really great, it just leads to my favorite sequence in the original trilogy by far. Whenever Luke eventually shows up on Bespin, he goes to like rescue them. Han gets frozen in carbonite, which the carbonite like set, oh my god, is immaculate. It's a fantastic set. The lighting, the set design, the cinematography used on that set whenever they're there, it's iconic. It's phenomenal. I love that set so much. So we see them there, and then Han gets turned into carbonite. You get the iconic like "I love you" and "I know" line between Leia and Han, and yeah, it's really good. And as Boba Fett is going to leave with Han Solo, Lando Calrissian starts trying to help like Leia and all them like escape again and try to get Han. And so they're like crossing paths as Luke is also getting there. But then Luke, of course, gets sidetracked. He gets led to where Vader is waiting for him in the carbonite freezing chamber, or whatever you want to call that room. And then we get the showdown. We get the lightsaber fight between Vader and Luke. And this is one of my favorite lightsaber fights in Star Wars. One, it's shot excellently. The sets for the entire sequence are outstanding. It starts in the carbonite freezing chamber. Then it goes through into this other tunnel and this hallway. And then finally out onto the platform. And like all of it just looks amazing. It's such a great final, like huge... I say like huge set piece, but it's also a very intimate set piece. Like it's literally between father and son, which you don't know. I mean, we know now, of course, but like the first time you see it, you don't know until the end of that moment. But like this is your big, like this is the hero versus villain fight at the end of the movie, and our conditioning also, of course, has led us to believe, like as an audience, that like the hero is going to come out on top. It's like this whole time, and they're going back and forth, and like the choreography in this one is so much stronger than the fight between Vader and Obi-Wan, and the fight really gets a lot of breathing room as well, because not only is it paced well just in itself, but it's also, of course, cut between what's going on with Han and Han's frozen, but like Leia and Chewie and C-3PO and Lando and all that, and Boba, like that's intercut between the fight as well. And so all that action is a really, one, entertaining, but it's two, also a really good way to pace the Vader and Luke fight. And so that helps, but then also the fight itself is paced well, and that it's got a really nice ebb and flow. It has a couple moments of like quiet where it slows down, and then it will pick back up. We see Vader like using the Force against Luke after they get into the hallway, and like throwing stuff at him, and that's just really cool to see. And then of course the fight ends up leading out to the platform, and we get like the most iconic reveal probably of like all time, after Vader ends up just cutting Luke's hand off, and he says like, no, I am your father. And yeah, I mean, who like, one, doesn't know that line, and then two, how can you not love that moment? One, again, some of the most iconic like Darth Vader imagery of all time is him standing out on that platform with his hand like extended, and it's amazing. I don't even know how to describe it. That like just the whole sequence, the whole fight between Vader and Luke, one, has so much emotion going through it, and then two, is just also done so well, like on every technical level. It's just amazing to watch. So you gotta love that. And then Leia and Chewie and Lando all end up like getting away in the Falcon, and then Leia like senses Luke through the Force, and goes back to rescue him. And so yeah, I mean, Empire is just easily my favorite of the original trilogy. I love really everything that it does, because it just, one, like, is a lot. I have probably said this on here before. I'm definitely a big fan of darker stories, and this is definitely the darkest of the three original trilogy films. It takes like, one, it front loads the big battle at the beginning where like the rebels do like succeed, but then as the movie goes on, they just go through more tribulations, and like they lose at the end of this movie pretty much. Like Luke loses his hand, finds out Obi-Wan was a liar, Anakin, his father, is still alive, his father's Darth Vader, and he just got completely defeated. Han is frozen in carbonite and now gone. So like the heroes, whenever this movie ends, are so much worse of a place than they are whenever A New Hope ends and like this movie begins. And I love that they did that with this film. I think that's like the strongest part about this film, just as a whole. And so and it also just makes it like really stick out the most in this trilogy. Like I love it a lot. It's a great movie. And again, like with the first one, the special effects and everything they do here is just really incredible. I marvel at the fact that they figured all this out, and then two, like did it, especially to the extent that they did. Like all the stuff, especially in the middle of the movie with the Millennium Falcon and like the asteroid field, and what they did with that is just, it's like the TIE fighters chasing them too. It's yeah, I don't understand. I mean, like, I get it, kind of, how it works a little bit, but it's beyond me. So, yeah, I think those are, like, most of my thoughts on Empire. I think this is actually, ironically, this will probably be my shortest episode, because I just don't have, like, super extensive thoughts on the original trilogy. I mean, like, I kind of do, and, like, I love them a lot, but it's just not to the same length as, I guess, the other ones. Wow. And so, yeah, moving on to, like, Return of the Jedi. And I actually had, like, the hardest time getting through this one, which I was, like, kind of eager to rewatch this one because it's been the longest, actually, since I rewatched this. And, I mean, it's good. The whole, like, beginning sequence on Tatooine with Jabba the Hutt, half of it I don't really like that much. And then half of it I do. Like, half of it is just too kind of, like, cheesy and, like, I don't want to say kid friendly, but like it's definitely I'm not the target audience for half of it anymore. Like it's definitely very much like partly made for kids, which is good. Like I can't fault the movie for that, because Star Wars is inherently also for kids. And so like I don't want to take points away for that, but like I also just like won't add them, because I'm like, well, I don't really like that much. Like I don't mind it. But just a lot of the stuff at the beginning part, I'm just kind of like, whatever. I don't really like Jabba that much either. I mean, like, I know you're supposed to, like, not like him, but I just, like, in general, just, like, I'm like, whatever. And so that whole sequence, I mean, I think it's really, it's nice seeing, like, Leia going in to rescue Han. Before that, though, actually, we get, one thing that I think does stand out a lot on Return of the Jedi is, and it actually opens with this, but it opens with Vader landing on the Death Star, the new Death Star, and the sets and the way that that all the ships around and going into the Death Star are filmed in this movie, and like the sets of the new Death Star are so incredible. They look great, and there's a lot of shots too where like they use paintings, but the way that the way that they combine the use of paintings and then also shooting on sets, and like they will make it basically to where like the set is on the painting kind of with their filming techniques, is just mind blowing, and it just makes everything feel so real. Because like the one super wide shot of like Emperor and the Vader walking through the just rows and rows of troops that are in the like landing area of the Death Star, like 90% of those troops aren't real. They're painting. It's a painting, but you think it's real because you also see Emperor and Vader walking in the same space of the painting, and so just the way that they do that is just I can't even begin to describe. And so that's a really cool thing, and something that definitely I think stands out in Return of the Jedi. All the Death Star sets, they're just bigger and better, and they just look great. So I like that. But yeah, the Tatooine sequence. I mean, it's cool seeing Leia rescue Han. But just overall, that sequence I'm kind of iffy on. The action at the end, whenever Luke finally like comes in and goes to rescue everyone, I think is really really strong. I like that a lot. It's of course really cool seeing Luke with his new lightsaber. Also the first time that we're seeing a green lightsaber. And so yeah, it's just really also interesting seeing like how much Luke has become like a Jedi in the time between Empire and Return of the Jedi. Like he's so skilled now with like everything basically. Like he's become a Jedi Knight basically almost like overnight. Um, and I mean, I know Yoda says that he's not a Jedi yet because he needs to face Vader, but like for all intents and purposes, throughout Return of the Jedi, like Luke is a Jedi. He has the skills and everything to be a Jedi, and you really see that on display at the beginning with one, him using the Jedi mind trick, and then two, just his command of the Force and his prowess with the lightsaber, is nice. Boba Fett gets taken out, just in like one shot by Han on accident, literally, and thrown into the Sarlacc pit. So yeah, I mean that's the opening sequence on Tatooine. I just really am like kind of iffy about. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's not bad, but like, I don't really love it like that much. And so yeah, there's that, and then what do we even? Oh yeah, from there we go to like Luke goes back to Dagobah to go and like train with Yoda, and then Yoda's dying. And I really love the conversation between Luke and Yoda. It's got a couple things cut in between it, but just the conversation, it's just full of revelations, basically. It's just Yoda and Luke talking about the, like, one, Yoda's warning him about the power of the dark side and the path to the dark side and the danger that holds. But then Luke also just gets a lot of revelations about his father. And then this is also where Luke learns that he has a sister and that Leia is his sister. And so it's just a lot of really great character growth, character revelations, just story revelations in general in this scene. And then of course Yoda ends up dying at the end, and so we lose Yoda at the end of this. And so yeah, and also Luke learns that like there's no more like actual training that he can do here. He's as gone as far as like Yoda thinks that he can. Or as far as Yoda could help him, which I mean he's dying now anyway, so he couldn't really help him at all. But so we get that, and then from then it's pretty much like we are pretty much in the third act. Honestly, I would say the third act of this movie is probably the longest one of the two. Like I feel like the middle, like I literally finished watching it this morning and I can't remember exactly what was going on with like Han and Leia and everyone between Tatooine and whenever they formed the plan to go to Endor. Like, I know they did something. I feel like they did something, but I can't remember what it was. So, like, the first act I would definitely say is, like, Tatooine. And then the second one, they were doing something and Luke is on Dagobah. And then the third is whenever they start and go to Endor. And this is definitely the longest third act in the trilogy. It's, like, half the movie. And I mean, it's good. We get them going on to Endor, and Luke is with them at first. And they, like, come across the Ewoks. They come across. Okay, one thing I do really like it at the beginning of the third act is like the speeder chase whenever they first come across the troopers, like on Endor, yeah. And I really like the speeder chase. It's very exciting. It's the speeders are just one of the coolest Star Wars vehicles. I remember whenever they were in the original Battlefront and Battlefront 2, and like using those was so fun. I remember everyone would just run to them like on spawn. Like if you spawn with someone else and you like both saw it, and it would just be like a mad dash to whoever got to the speeder first. But yeah, so that sequence is really exhilarating, honestly, whenever they're going after the troopers on the different speeders. It's again just a testament to how well these are filmed and made from a special effects standpoint. And so I really love that. But then after them, like Luke leaves them, and we get, we meet the Ewoks. The Ewoks again are okay. I'm again not the target audience for them. So like that's what they're doing on the surface of Endor for a while. And then we also get Luke turning himself over to the Empire and going to see Vader. And the other thing that is a big standout in this movie is the Emperor. I haven't mentioned him yet, which I actually meant to, But I think it's really cool that like we don't see the Emperor in the first episode, like technically the fourth episode, but we don't see him in A New Hope, and we only see him as like a hologram in episode 5. Like we hear about him in A New Hope, but we don't see him, and then we see him as a hologram in episode 5. And then we actually finally like see him in this film, and he is just such a commanding presence. Like he just is evil. Like he just radiates pure evil, and it's so cool. It's just he just captures the screen. Like every time he's on it, he just commands it. And so he's just such a strong like big villain throughout this. Like Vader's obviously been like the more upfront villain of the trilogy. Like he obviously was in A New Hope, and then he was there in Empire for all of it. But you see him reporting to the Emperor in Empire, and I think that's a really, really good scene also, which I forgot to mention. And that's whenever he's saying that like he can turn Luke, and Luke just refuses to join him in Empire. And so yeah, seeing the Emperor in this though is really, really good in the way that he is just like, yeah, like I've planned all of this. Like everything that's happening even now is still like my plan and my doing. And so I like that a lot. And then, yeah, but we get Luke going and like turning himself over, and then we see Luke and Vader, and like Luke knows now, and like just the conversation that they have is really interesting, because Luke is saying that he like knows that there's still goodness and conflict in Vader, and that he'll get him to turn. And like Vader obviously is like, nah, it's not gonna happen. Like no way, son. And so we get that. That's a really good scene. And then yeah, we get the final battle of Endor, which consists of like 3 different things. So we get Luke presented to the Emperor by Vader, and the throne room scene, the original throne room scene. And so that sequence is phenomenal. And then intercut with that, we get the space attack on the Death Star, which has to be like avoided for a second because the deflector shields are still up. And so we get like a nice space battle, classic Star Wars space battle. And then we also get the fight on Endor on the ground with Han and Leia leading the troops against the generator outpost thing that's keeping the deflector shield up, and they have the help of the Ewoks. And so we get these 3, and again, it's just cut between the 3 of these in just classic Star Wars fashion, but it's done in a very, very entertaining and engaging way the whole way through. The space battle is good, the foot battle on Endor is good, but then obviously the thing that really takes the cake in this entire sequence is the, of course, climactic battle between Luke and Vader. We see that red and that green lightsaber clash. And yeah, it's another really, really great like lightsaber duel. This is the duel that decides the fate of the trilogy. And it's father versus son. Luke is on pretty even ground with Vader now, and it's just a damn good fight all the way through. Like the set is a fantastic set. It's so well designed. We have the Emperor's looming evil presence in it the entire time, just egging Luke on to like embrace his hate and his rage, and trying to bring him further and further to the dark side while Vader is fighting him. And yeah, it's just great. It's really great. And so we get that. I mean, before the fight even breaks out, we have like the Emperor again, where he's talking about though how like everything was by his design. Like he lured the rebels here. He's gonna make Luke watch them all like die, and he is just trying to get him to like just give into his hate. And then Luke like kind of does whenever he goes to strike him down, but then of course Vader stops him, and that leads to the fight. But yeah, I guess yeah, like Han and them get the upper hand on the deflector shield at like I can't remember which one actually happens first, but at pretty much the same time, like they end up destroying the facility that's powering the deflector shield for the Death Star. As the Luke and Vader duel is coming to its climax, we get Luke he wrecks Vader pretty much. His just aggression is just unmatched, and he ends up cutting off Vader's hand. And whenever he sees that, and the Emperor's goading him on to like finish him, and he sees that Vader's arm is cybernetic and like it reminds him of his, and he refuses to strike down his father. He will not do it. He won't join the dark side. And this I would like to put a pin in and make known that it's extremely important to Luke's character, because how does Luke defeat the Emperor at the end of this trilogy? By not fighting. He does not fight. That's how he wins. Just want to make that point abundantly clear. I'll get back to it in my next episode. But yeah, so Luke, to complete his character arc, uses inaction and peace to bring down the Emperor because he won't do it. And so then the Emperor goes to electrocute him, uses Sith lightning, which I can only imagine how crazy that was to see for the first time in theaters. And so as he's doing that, then we get like Vader standing up and going next to him. And of course we get the redemption. I'm doing quotes here because it's up to you whether or not you would consider Darth Vader / Anakin redeemed by this act. But we get the redemption of Anakin Skywalker whenever he grabs the Emperor and throws him over the side down that huge, just gigantic shaft in the Death Star, and he blows up. And I also want to make it known, because I mean we know that the Emperor will be in Episode 9 in some capacity. He very much is there. But I'm definitely leaning more towards the like resurrection side as opposed to like him being alive all this time, because there's no way in hell he survived that fall. He fell, one, so far, and then two, there's a giant ass explosion that follows after he hits down there due to all his Sith lightning and all that bullshit. So like, yeah, there's no way that he actually survived that. So we get that happening. The deflector shield's down, and we get Lando leading the charge to destroy the second Death Star. So they like do that and succeed in that at the same time as Luke is getting his father, Darth Vader, out, trying to get him to his ship as the whole like station is evacuating. And yeah, the final like conversation between Luke and his father, it's so iconic whenever he actually like removes the mask and just sees like what Vader is, what he had become, just how frail and like broken he is really like as a man, and just the fact that there still was some good in him, that he was again redeemed, I'll do quotes, it's a great moment between Luke and his father like wanting him to tell Leia that, and so yeah, it's just it's a very good like sequence, and then we get them leaving and the Death Star blowing up again, and so it's victory, and that like pretty much like wraps up the trilogy. I mean, we get the final like sequence of the sequence of Luke burning Vader on the pyre is very iconic, and the celebration thing. So I actually noticed it, or I thought about it whenever I was watching this. Whenever we see the fireworks go off in the version of the movie that is on Disney Plus, it also shows like all the planets celebrating, like even Coruscant and Naboo, and those which are not in the original trilogy, and I'm assuming that they weren't on the original release either, because like I know that Lucas has gone back like 2 or 3 times at this point to like add things to each of these movies since they were released. One, the CGI things in A New Hope are super noticeable. I don't understand why they put them there. They stick out so much. They should not be there. But I'm assuming that one of the other things, like one of the other changes, is the addition of seeing like all these different planets. Because I can't imagine that they're there in the original versions of the original trilogy, because we hadn't seen any of them before this sequence. So, but I don't know. I mean, maybe I just kind of doubt it. But yeah, seeing those is cool. And then, I mean, yeah, early in the movie too, I forgot to like mention it, but whenever Luke tells Leia about their like parentage and their history and stuff, it's another good like character moment. I think Return of the Jedi has a lot of good character moments, just like Empire does. I mean, the whole trilogy does, but it has a lot of profound like character revelation and things like that. And yeah, I mean, dude, I don't know. I'll scatterbrain some more like random thoughts. All the imagery around Vader is incredible. Him in his little like egg looking, I don't know, office. I don't know what else to call it. That like he stays in an Empire. Is just iconic looking. Seeing like the helmet lowered onto him in there. His voice, just his mannerisms, the commanding presence that he has is so good. The Emperor as an overall villain for the trilogy is really great. He's just completely insidious and terrible. Luke's journey overall, I mean, is good. Again, don't like love him a lot like as a character. I don't have a huge connection to him, but he's still good throughout it. The entire cast gives great performances throughout this trilogy. I mean, there's a reason these movies and these characters and these actors are so beloved in these roles as they are. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really have that many like other thoughts about the original trilogy. It's they're groundbreaking especially at the time. They're the original Star Wars. They have a special place in my heart because of that. Like, we wouldn't have anything Star Wars without them. So I mean, I'm super like thankful and appreciative of them. But yeah, I think Empire is the only one of the original trilogy that breaks my like top 5 as far as my Star Wars ranks. I'll figure out my complete ranking again after I finish my rewatch, which I have The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi next, which are 2 of my favorites. So I'm very, very excited about these next 2 before The Rise of Skywalker on Thursday. So yeah, I think that's pretty much like all my thoughts on the original trilogy. So yeah, with that, I guess that'll pretty much wrap up this episode. I'm now going to plug social media as always. So first off, if you haven't, you should definitely follow at Comic Book Debate on Twitter and check out comicbookdebate.com. They're one of the great websites that I contribute to. There are a ton of great people that help contribute to that site to make it what it is. So please be sure to go check that out. There's a ton of great content on there. I'll have an article going up very soon about some of the best Batman moments of the decade. So be sure to look out for that. You should also follow at Comic Book Case on Twitter and comicsbookcase.com. You should check them out. It's another site that I contribute to. Again, a lot of very talented and great people contribute to that site to make it what it is. I'll be contributing to an article on there that will go up by the end of the month. I don't know the exact date yet, but be sure to be on the lookout for that and check out that site if you haven't. You can follow me on Twitter at APBatman with 2 T's is my personal Twitter, where I just post about whatever. My tattoo is on there if you want to check that out. And yeah, I just kind of ramble and rant and do whatever on there. And then you can also find me at Batman Files on Twitter, which is my Batman fan account, where I post the most on there probably. And so if you want some more Batman content, be sure to follow me on there. Also, this whole gift set thing on Twitter is crazy. I actually, if you haven't seen it, it's started with literally last night. I guess people figured it out, a way to post multiple gifts in one tweet. You can't do it on your phone, or you can't do it on the app on your phone. I did it on my laptop earlier, but like I literally can't even see them on my phone because I have an Android, which it's better, whatever. I don't care. But as of right now, like you can't, the GIFs don't move on the like Android app version of the phone. I'm assuming they do on the iPhones because everyone's freaking out about them. But yeah, so that's been fun actually. And if you want, you can follow me on Instagram at apb.comics. And then as always, please be sure to leave a like, rate, and review on whatever platform you're using to listen and or watch this on. If you're watching on YouTube, please consider subscribing, turning notifications on. And yeah, just leave a comment with any good or bad feedback. I'm always trying to make the show better, so anything is appreciated. And as always, thank you for listening, and be sure to tune in next time. Later.